Hello, everyone, and welcome to this joint webinar between TruMethods and Auvik, packaging and pricing for MSPs. We're going to talk about how to dramatically impact your recurring revenue in a positive way. Before I introduce my co-host, just some quick housekeeping. If you have any questions, you can enter them into the GoToWebinar questions pod, and we will be monitoring and try to answer all your questions during the session. Also, we won't send out the slides for this, but we are recording it. So everyone who registered and attended will receive a link. This is one of those things that's packed with a lot of information. You may want to watch it again, or you may want to share it with someone else in your organization. So with that, let me introduce my co-host, Patrick Albert, Vice President of Product Marketing at Auvik. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Gary, how's it going?
Can I drop the associate and just say Vice President?
I'll take the promotion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's almost like if you watch The Office, he's not the regional, he's assistant to, not assistant regional manager, assistant to the regional manager.
I'll take it.
Okay. All right. So with your new promotion, hey, you and I have got a chance to do a few other webinars, right, this year. We've had some fun working on those on a bunch of different topics. But the reason I'm excited today about this topic is that mistakes in packaging and pricing for MSPs can reduce or eliminate really chances of achieving their goals. And some people, here's the key to it, Patrick, some people never even know it, right? Because some of the most important things we're going to talk about today are counterintuitive. So we're going to spend the first part of this, half of it talking about packaging, and then we're going to dive in detail into understanding pricing. You and I were both at IT Nation last week, and I had 4 breakout sessions. So each one of them had between, I don't know, 150 and 300, people in them. And I asked some questions about how people understand pricing. And after all this time, it's shocking, Patrick, that a lot of people don't have the command that they need to understand their MSP packaging and pricing. So I decided on this one that I threw some extra details in about how to understand pricing. So I'm hoping it's going to be super valuable for people. Real quick, this is all going to be content. It's not really about Auvik or TruMethods and our software product, my IT process. But at the end, we will take a minute and tell you a little bit about what we're doing. But just in case if you have to hop off early and you want to learn more, these are the 2 web addresses that you can go to, auvik.com/pp18 and truemethods.com/demo. If you want to see our products, get a demo and see what we're doing in terms of helping MSPs, grow revenue and profitability. Okay. So listen, Patrick, if you're in the recurring revenue business, your service offering is at the very center of what you do. And I say this as someone who, as you know, I've built 2 2 top MSPs, bought, built, sold, right? As well as for 10 years at TruMethods with our training and software, working with thousands of MSPs. So I get a close look at this. Your offering and how you deliver it, how you package it, has to do with your ability to sell new customers, also the price you're able to sell them at, and then that impacts how you're able to deliver the quality and I'll say the value of the service you can deliver, and both of those things impact your profitability as you grow your customer base. And one thing that I've been stressing to people, like, really, it's kind of upsetting to me, right? This has been my life for 22 years, this industry, and helping MSPs for 10 years of it. When I look and see the industry numbers of where average MSPs are in terms of profitability today, and the fact that they're really no further ahead than they were 5 or 6 years ago, that gets real personal for me, Patrick. Like, I don't think that's right. Are you with me on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I mean, the software companies are doing great, and the investors are doing great, and our customers are getting great value. And there's about 15-20% of MSPs that are doing amazing in terms of profitability north of 20% net. But the average, the other 75%, those numbers haven't moved up in terms of percentage of profit. And I think what we're going to talk about today, I'm hoping we're going to give people a different look at why, and not only be able to sell more, but be able to really add some points to your bottom line and change your business and change your life. That's my goal. So your service offering, it is your product, right? So we're in a service business. So if you think about it, you're offering, we sell an intangible. Like, we do a bunch of things for people, and we're trying to sell them that it'll impact their technology or their business, compared to selling them, a firewall, or selling them a new phone system, which is very tangible. It's less tangible. So how you package it and how you describe it and link it to results is important. If you want to judge how you're doing with your offering, here's how you would judge it. How much new monthly recurring revenue do you sell, right? What seat price do you command? What's your average seat price? And then your close ratio or separation, like, are you able to separate from the competition? Can you go in and there's another vendor or two, and can you clearly, based on your offering, make it tangible enough that the prospect sees a real difference and is maybe even willing to invest more based on how you do it? That's what your packaging and pricing needs to do, Patrick. Sounds like a tall order, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, and I think for coming from the software world, so I'm obviously in the product management realm, and in fact, I've actually seen some of the very, very large MSPs actually have a role around understanding pricing and packaging, and in fact, they actually call it a product manager role, because a large part of product management is, in fact, understanding what you're offering, what services you're offering, how much benefit that drives to your customer, how that differentiates, and really that starts putting itself together and kind of displaying how much value you can actually articulate of this. So this is very, very much similar to the software world and product management in general.
Yeah, and I remember when I first launched my, in my first MSP, when we first, we're moving from break and fix, and we started having some tools. We were doing some remote stuff with our RMM and a little bit of backup stuff. It was early on, and we got to the point where we started packaging it for the first time into one monthly fee. um, it was a huge failure. I was going out to customers that already liked us and telling them, hey, we had this new way of approaching it. You can call us as much as you want. And, we have patch and spy and spam and backup, and, it's one monthly fee. And, I just figured, like, I was going to go out and, like, every customer was going to convert, because I had spent 3 months training our people and getting our tools deployed. It was awesome. And I was shocked when the first thing they said was, oh, well, how much is that going to cost me per month? Oh, 3,000 a month. Well, we only spend 2,500 now, and I don't know. We're happy. We're good. I'm like, I'm like, well, what do you mean? And so until I figured out, and I'll start from the concepts, and a general concept that an analogy, and then we're going to work down to the detail of how I changed that, right? And was able to get 7,000 end users under management at the highest prices in our marketplace based on these concepts. So think about it this way. All right, this is the TruMethods famous chocolate cake analogy, right? Um, there's grocery stores, and if you think about a grocery store, they all have the same products on the shelves, and you may like one over another, but Patrick, you're not going to pay $1.35 for a 68-cent can of green beans. And that's why their model is very high volume and very low margin. It's a commodity, right? Now, think about, if you're a baker, if you go into their cupboard or their refrigerator, they also have all the same ingredients, all the same products on the shelves. The difference is they combine them into their unique recipe to make their chocolate cake. And I know when my wife sends me out for a birthday cake, I drive past two or three other bakeries to get to the one whose recipe we love. And when I get there, I don't care whether the cake costs $35 or costs $40. So they're a little bit lower volume, obviously, but they're higher margins business. They are not a commodity. Their recipe is unique. So you have to think about, are you a grocery store or a bakery? Are you a reseller or a truly an MSP? Because what I was doing was I was out selling the ingredients, right? We can support you remotely now. We can do your patching. We can back you up, pack, spy, spam. And it all sounded great, but really what they were seeing was, hey, but the end result they were receiving to them was already good enough. I didn't tell them how we combined our recipe and that this new chocolate cake was going to be so much better for their business, that it was going to impact them in a way that the least expensive thing they could do is invest in that right chocolate cake. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Because there's a lot of ingredients. I could have two more pages. Like, these are all the ingredients. And our list of ingredients, like I said, you and I were just both exhibiting in the Solutions Pavilion last week. There's a lot of ingredients in there, Patrick.
Yeah,
Right?
there's a lot. It was a, also obviously a really big show, but as you start walking around, there's no shortage of new solution or new problems you can help solve. It's a matter of which ones are key to you and how do you package them together.
And how are they going to impact your customers? So when I think about it, most MSPs, if you really look at their resources, okay, maybe not what they say they do, but if you look at the people on their team, they usually fall into three categories. Two of them are here. One of them that's not here is professional services. So you got people that are doing stuff, billable stuff, putting up a server, moving people to the cloud. That's your professional services team. Then we talk about your monthly fee. The majority of your people are doing tickets and alerts, or they're delivering some of your stack. And so my question is, does support and these growing list of centralized services, which are critical, right? And Auvik, you're on that stack now, right? You're an important part of that stack. But my question is, does support and centralized services alone allow you to create a value and separate from, right, your competitors in a unique way? So what I like to say is, where the typical managed service offering ends is where yours need to begin. So in addition to support and centralized services, where are you with your recipe? And for most people, your recipe is all of your knowledge and experience collectively you have that you put into standards and alignment, your standards development. Hey, this is the way that we configure and keep alignment on how we do a network deployment, on how we organize Active Directory, on how we do perimeter security. So again, if you don't have roles in process around that, that's a huge part of your recipe. Support doesn't require a recipe, right? You hire good people, you have some basic process. And I don't know, Patrick, you work with a lot of MSPs. They don't all do it efficiently, but they all are pretty good at offering support, don't you think? Like
Yeah,
they take good care of their customers.
yeah, it has to be a core competency, absolutely.
And the same thing with centralized services. You got to have at least your basic stack in place by this point, and you got to be pretty good at delivering, the monitoring and the patching and the security stack and the backup and those kind of things. You agree on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And these are things that pretty much every MSP offers, right? And I think where you're getting at is the bottom component is how you start differentiating yourselves, and I think another perspective is looking at this through the lens of not necessarily talking and listening through the solutions really, but also kind of focusing about the problems you want to help solve there as well.
Exactly. And that's where we get into, again, your recipe around alignment, and then virtual CIO, true CIO, where you're impacting their business. You're helping develop them. I call it the strategic roadmap, but a strategy around technology and how it's going to, help them enable their business plan. And, that's a huge piece of it. Think about it this way. you know, we're out there and we're worried because we're charging 4,000 a month and the competitor is 3,000 a month, and we think, oh my God, how could we sell at 4,000 if everybody else is at 3,000? Well, someone who spends $4,000 a month with us probably has $300,000 to $500,000 a month of payroll and overhead, right?
Yeah.
So from a relative standpoint, whether we charge 3,000 or whether we charge 4,000, we're a very small percentage cost, the bill to us. We're a small cost to our customers. And if they're only comparing it against the other costs, then it seems big. But if we can show them through our recipe and through a true VCIO process how we can impact those big costs in their business, if we can make this tangible, right? That we have roles and process around this that we're going to talk about, then guess what? We can reduce their risk. We can help them hit their, increase their productivity. If they can even, without an ROI calculator, feel like that you have an offering that's going to impact those big costs, the entire money conversation starts to go away. And if you think about just support and centralized services, the little joke that I tell is I call it the 10-minute MSP. You can go to any trade show in our industry and you can walk into the solutions pavilion with a credit card, and 10 minutes later, you can walk out an MSP, right? So what separates the 10-minute MSP from all the people I just met last week who've been in business for 5 and 10 and 15 years that have all this rich, tremendous scale and experience? Well, it's, can they put that into roles and process that are tangible so that the prospect can understand the difference of how they're going to benefit, how their business is going to benefit from their knowledge and experience. And it's really hard to do that saying you're going to patch a computer better than someone else or you're going to answer a phone better than someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So what I've done is saying I've looked at, hey, there's basically, we separate this business into five service delivery areas, roles or delivery areas. Support, centralized services, right? So that's your whole stack, probably your RMM and your monitoring tools, including Auvik is the center of it, plus your security stack, all the rest of it, all your centralized services. Professional services, which again, usually isn't bundled into your monthly fee, but it's one of your service delivery areas. It's visible. That stuff is what I call low perceived value, super critical. So I want to make sure people don't misunderstand me. Very critical. But at this point, after 10 years into the MSP experiment and the level of tools that are out there that are so awesome today compared to where we were, you should be able to do those three things. And customers are already, whether you can or not, they're already expecting that you're good at it, Patrick, and that you can do it cost effectively, right?
Yeah, in my world, we call those checkbox features, right? Things that are people expect you to have, things that are you have to do well, but they're not going to be your differentiation.
Right. If you don't have them or you don't do them well, it's a negative. But
Yeah,
if you have them and do them well, it's expected. And
exactly.
I've taken this concept of technology alignment and true VCIO, and we've coined it here at TruMethods as technology success, which means these are roles and process that are aimed at SMBs, completely focused on helping them navigate technology, knowing where they are in and out of your standards, and be able to learn about their business and to be able to show them the business impact and risk they have of misalignments. And we're going to talk more, about, exactly how some of this works. But you get the concept on this, right? So if you can start to get more of your resources on the technology success side, more roles, more resources, more time, of the people that you have on staff relative to those low perceived value, that's when you start to command a higher price, start to change the relationship with customers. That's what the top 15, 20% of the people in this business are doing. So one quick thing you can do is take a quick check of this, right? And look at your service offering and ask how much of what you're pitching to people and how much of your offering is what I call the everybody stuff, the ingredients, support, monitoring, backup, help desk, your cloud stack, security stack, those kind of things. And how much are you stressing that's your recipe, right? How you take all your knowledge and experience and put it into a set of standards and have a process to continue to align against their technology, and then have a way of showing them the business impact of misalignments and get building that strategic roadmap that doesn't just impact our technology, but having them see technology, as a way of supporting their business goals, Patrick, because that's what all small businesses need today. Some of them, even 3 or 4 years ago, Patrick, could say that technology was still a necessary evil. I don't think any small business can say that today.
No, yeah, definitely not, especially with the reliance on credit cards and all that for processing transactions.
Yeah, in every aspect. Their sales is now
Yep.
their sales, their marketing, their operations, their customer service. Everything is driven by technology. So if they don't use it as an advantage, it becomes by definition a competitive disadvantage. And the owners and presidents and decision makers of small and medium sized businesses, they really speak this language today. So here's some things you want to think about. One, focus on that end result, okay? And so what we teach, right, in both our training and what we do here is start to think about these things in these delivery areas so that you can start to focus and prioritize those higher delivery areas that are going to make the end result to your customer have more business impact. And because they're roles in process, you can make it more tangible by explaining it to the customer in that way. So I find, Patrick, what MSPs are pretty good at, because they're pretty technical, they're good at uncovering technical pain. In other words, they go and meet a prospect and they ask questions and they figure out in 15 minutes all the things they would do differently.
Right.
What they're not good at doing is attaching a value to that and showing how their unique recipe or chocolate cake is going to uniquely solve it compared to what they have today or other alternatives they have. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm loving this chocolate cake analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get into that and understand it, that's what you have to do. It's not enough. If uncovering pain allowed you to sell people, all MSPs would be doing great in sales, and
Right.
they'd all be commanding the right price because they're pretty good at figuring out that things aren't being done the way they would do them. They just can't turn that into a tangible reason why a customer would make a change and maybe invest a little bit more. Number two, so to focus on that end result you're trying to deliver. Two, define your edges. When I mean edges, what's included in your monthly fee and what's not, Patrick? Okay. So an example of this of a fuzzy edge would be, Patrick, yeah, it's 4,000 a month. You can call me as much as you want. But if it's more than an hour, we bill you. If it's a how-to question, if it was your fault that they put all these caveats on it. And the person who's calling you never saw your agreement, Patrick, the end user. And either did your person. They
Right.
only know they have an issue that they need to get solved. So what I'm saying is either don't include everything or include everything, okay? And price it appropriately, but make sure it's really easy to define, okay?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'll give
because
go ahead.
in that situation, like if I were the end client, and even if I did see the contract at that point, I'd be, with all those caveats, I'd be almost concerned to have to call because I don't know if I'm gonna be, this is an extra fee or not, and the second I start getting concerned about that is where I start, seeing less value in the service.
And you don't want end users in that, and you don't want your support desk people in the agreement business. You want them in the managing customer expectation and closing ticket business.
Right,
Right?
exactly.
That's their job. They shouldn't be involved in anything else. So I'll give you one. I'll give you one common one that is the grayest area. That maybe if you can attack this one, it gets easier. Max, right? Moves, adds, and changes. New workstations. So do you include them? Do you not include them? And what I find is people that include them really struggle because it lowers their margins because it's really hard to get an average cost, on those things and then figure out how to put that in your seat price. People that bill for them hourly tend to create a lot of risk for their customers, and it creates an entrance barrier and unhappy customers if they think the bill is too high. So what a lot of MSPs and what I've done in my MSPs is we have kind of middled it and come up with a flat fee. Hey, every new workstation is 300, 350, whatever it is. So that way it limits their risk and covers our cost. So we made a really strong edge.
Right.
Fuzzy edges mean risk to your customers, and risk means they devalue your offering and they don't buy. Okay.
Yep.
And then remove entrance barriers. Don't tell them like right off the bat they have to replace everything and spend. You're going to do some network evaluation, and then they got to spend $50,000 with you for the right. Just for the you're allowed to support them and stuff. And if you think about it, really, as long as you start with your whole relationship should way that we teach it should be around alignment. So you're always alignment, and you can start with the most important things like backup and security first to make sure that those get taken care of, right? Long contracts that are complicated, right? So there's a lot of things that people have that are entrance barriers. The only like you do those things because you're trying to cover your risk. The only way an MSP really reduces risk is to add more seats under management at the right price. As you scale and you spread your risk out over a wider amount of seats, your risk goes down. So anything you do that stands in the way of scaling seats at the right price is actually, Patrick, increasing your risk. It's not reducing it. That's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. The next one I love, limit your choices and options, people. Okay. There are not five right ways to deliver the right thing. There just isn't. And don't let customers demand your results their way. So I get to see a lot of packaging and pricing in my line where I sit, right, from my perch. You know, a lot of people, when someone new meets them, they show them a picture of their family. Patrick, people show me their packaging and pricing, their offerings, right?
Yep.
And I look at them and I see, bronze, silver, gold, pewter, tin, platinum. And then, they got 3, 4, 5 different offerings. And you can have it with or without backup, with or without monitoring, with or that, as we say in Philadelphia, with or without, right? With or without whiz. And I look at them and say, well, okay, I've been in this business for a while, right? How would I know which one to pick? Like, which is the right one? Which is the offering that you're charging enough, has all the right ingredients, enough money where you can actually implement your recipe and impact their results of their business in the right way? And they're like, well, this one. So why do you have all the rest? Most common answer, well, because people want choices. But most of the time, Patrick, when people tell me that, they're not selling a lot of recurring revenue, Patrick, right? So
Right.
you I make a little joke and I say, look, you can't have it both ways. If I come to you and say, look, Patrick, you told me about 3 issues you're having in your business that you agreed are impacting the bigger costs in your business, right? Let me show you our roles and process that we have, our ingredients, how we do this that's aimed exactly at that. Does it make sense that because we do this, that we can, that those things would go away with us compared to how you do things? Yes. Okay. Do you understand, right? Why we charge a little bit more than what you're spending now? Because this is what you're investing in. Does that make sense? Yes. Great. But if they said to me, yeah, but you're still $1,000 more, and I turned around and said, okay, then I'll just sell you my crappy silver program. Like, can I have it both ways? Can I tell them that this is the right investment in the right process and the right roles and the right recipe that's directly aimed at solving the things that you told me were important, and then tell them, but I'll charge you $1,000 less and take out 25% of it if you ask me to, right?
Yeah, it ends up being very confusing.
Yeah, because it's when you say it that way, right? It kind of sounds a little silly. What I tell people is, listen, we care too much about our customers not to charge them enough.
Right. Well, and one of the points you brought up earlier, I think was really another interesting point. In my world, I also get to spend a lot of time on site in MSPs and kind of
Yeah.
shadow technicians, and I want to make sure that I'm building the product that is designed in the way that they want to interact with it. But as a part of that, definitely get to see kind of the entire troubleshooting experience and the amount of time some technicians spend on figuring out, is this within the contract? Is it not?
Yeah.
They become agreement experts, as you mentioned, right? And sometimes that's actually a large part of the call is actually figuring out, can I answer this?
Which is horrible, right? You don't want to be in that. You never want to be in that spot, right?
Right.
That's not where you want to live. You want to put people in position to delight your customers and to do it efficiently for you. So think about that. We care too much about our customers not to charge them enough. I used to have this little thing that I'd say on a sales call where I'd sit with a customer, we'd uncover some pain. I'm like, hey man, I got great news for you. You're going to be able to choose the best vendor you want, and you're not going to have to worry about price. And they would say, oh, is that because everybody charges the same? I'm like, no, we're 25% more. It's just that when I show you the impact it's going to have on the big cost of your business, you're not really going to care about $1,000 one way or the other. And usually at that point, I have now set this gauntlet up where in their mind, there's this big difference. And I put this bold statement out there. And if I can deliver on it based on how I show them, the make tangible our value compared to what they have, you're going to be successful. Again, probably have sold $1.5 million of monthly recurring revenue in my career. And this is a lot of the way of how we do it. And remember this, one great fit customer, someone who buys the right program at the right price, they're more valuable than 3 to 5 near fit or bad fit customers that most people are taking on. So be patient, find the right customers at the right price, build your offering to delight those people and your service delivery to meet their expectations. And if you do that, you're going to be a top MSP. It's a big, big piece of it. I like to tell people, look, um, you know, we only have one offering, but you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. So focus on how you're. May seem simple, Patrick, but it's not. Don't first think about how you're going to impact your customers' technology. Think about how your offering is going to impact their business, their ability to run their business, their ability to meet their strategic goals, and how you can take the technical pain that you uncover when you meet them and turn it into tangible, something they attach a value to. Because the solution to that is going to be about their business. And if you can show them how their business is going to be a little better because they do business with you instead of someone else, you're going to really change that. You're going to be able to deliver value beyond technology. But to do that, you're going to have to focus on the recipe, not the ingredients. There's always time to circle back later on ingredients, Patrick, that you're proud of, right?
Right.
But you want to make the conceptual sale first around your recipe, around your roles and process, and tie those roles and process directly to the issues you uncover in their business. That's the secret to this business. So look at your offering by service delivery area. So I mentioned the ones that we look at, right? Support, centralized services, alignment, and VCIO. That's how I look at how we deliver service. And so we're packaging and offering our value and making it tangible that matches up with how we deliver. Because when the customer buys, that's what they bought. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And then each delivery has cost components. We're going to talk about that. And so how to start with the high value areas and then where to go from there as we're going to transition in a couple slides over into the pricing area. So good packaging should explain the reason why a prospect should buy from you. It should impact their business results, not just their technology. And it should separate your value from their current provider or competitors clearly. And if you do those things, you should be able to command a higher price, right? And that's really important because one of the biggest issues right now that's in this business is pricing and where people's pricing is at. So again, before we move on to pricing, think about this separation. Think about, minimizing those things around support and centralized services. And really what you see in green here, showing them your recipe. And I'll tell you the way that I have done it, when I approach sales and I've trained my salespeople is to say, look, when you first meet somebody and uncover pain, we want to tie our recipe to that solution. If we do that, money becomes less of an issue because now the prospect can make decisions around the results they want first, not based on a vendor or a cost or a technology. So that's what we're trying to do. So when we would go in, we would minimize the centralized service and support and say, listen, I think we do an awesome job. In some ways, I think it's better than other people. But for our conversation, let's just say that both vendors or all three vendors you're looking at, that we're all the same. Same thing with support. I'm proud of our people. You'll come and meet our team. I'll show you some things we do that I think are special. But let's assume for the conversation for now that all three of us have good support and deliver centralized services. Let me explain to you why people do business with us. And let me explain to you what's unique about where our resources are allocated and show you how what we do around alignment and VCIO directly relate to the things we uncovered in your business that you told me you wanted to change. Then later, when we gain that agreement and we get there with them, I can always circle back to centralized services and support and build value. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Because what I'm doing is I'm basically nullifying what my competition is coming in and spending all their time talking about it. Right? Okay. You want to talk about pricing a little bit? Do we have a question here? You want to answer? You want to take this question? Let me see. Let's real quick. Lisa says, hey, I'm curious about what process you recommend for establishing review of one's pricing and packaging. We're a successful MSP averaging 30% growth a year on it with profits of 10 to 11% annually. Well, so, okay, I don't want to hurt Lisa's feelings, but 10 to 11% doesn't put you in, it's going to put you actually below the average right now. Keen to go to that next level, but feel there's a lot of slippage in our cost. Do you have a 5-step process of sorts to effectively review pricing, including proper price, new customer? Lisa, I'm so glad you asked. Pretty much where we're headed is why people, Patrick, end up being growing at 30%, but only having margins of 10 or 11%. Too low, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely some room for improvement, and looking forward to discussing those.
Yeah, so Lisa, hang on and listen to this next 20 minutes because we're going to go straight at it, okay? So think about how people price now. Sometimes they do a network evaluation. Like, I don't know how you go out and review someone's technology and come up with a monthly fee. Like, and I've been doing this for 22 years, okay? Or basing it on what the client can pay or what a competitor charges. A lot of people say, when I say, how many people do cost plus margin? A lot of hands went up last week in the session that I did at IT Nation. But then when I asked them the next question, which is, well, how many of you can tell me what your average seat price is and how you calculated it? No hands went up. Well, how can you use cost plus if you don't know your cost? Right?
Right.
So basic guidelines, and then we're going to get into the detail. Keep your pricing model simple. Project it out. Like, ask yourself, hey, at this pricing, if I had 10, 20, 30, 40 customers, what would my business look like? What would my margins? And we're going to use seat price, all in seat price as a guide. Now, I'm not saying you get the price by seats. You can price, you could, but you can have any pricing calculator you want. But we're going to use a metric of taking all your recurring revenue, divide it by all the seats that you have under management, and that's your average seat price for overall and for a deal. So if someone has 20 seats and you charge them 2,000, you're at $100 a seat. That's your average, regardless of how you came to that price. Am I being clear on that, Patrick, on that definition?
Yep.
Okay. So if you take your average seat price minus your average cost per seat, that's your average profit per seat. What should your target gross margin be percentage-wise for managed services? Can anybody tell me what is your target? What should your gross margin percentage be for managed services? Anybody have a guess on that? All right, I'll tell them.
We got 40%.
40%. No, 70%. Caleb, not 40%. You want 70% gross margin on managed service agreements.
Oh, we got a 75% as well.
All right, 75, you're good. I'll take 75, right? Because that's above 70. So good answer there. So again, I asked this question already, but how many people can tell you the average cost per seat? I can tell you very few can. So let me give you a framework, right? It's going to answer Lisa's questions, and quickly in the next 15 minutes, you're going to be able to figure out your average cost per seat. First, think about your delivery areas. These are the ones that we teach. And here is really the TruMethods kind of framework. 5 delivery areas. One is professional services. And for most people, Patrick, that's billable. Okay. The next 4 are the one we include in our monthly fee. Centralized services, that process we talked about of standards and alignment, the VCIO role, and support. And so we want to tie those roles to revenue. So how much top line revenue do I, how much MRR does each role touch? And what is my cost per seat for each role, both labor and tools? If we can do that, we can come up with an average cost per seat that's going to be a great target. And you look at it, so the first one I said is billable. So professional services, usually not included in our cost per seat. The rest of them, basically, it's how many seats can each of these roles touch. So how many seats can a VCIO manage? Well, in other words, how many customers and how many seats across those customers can a VCIO manage? And if I divide that by my labor cost per month, that's my average cost per seat for VCIO. Same thing with technology alignment. With centralized services, that's where we put our tools cost because we have our tool stack in there. And then the same thing is with support. So how many seats can one support resource manage? And then based on that, if I divide that by my average monthly cost for an average support resource, that's my cost per seat for support. Now, 3 of these you see here are fixed because at the beginning of the month, I have a VCIO. I know how many clients they manage or will be able to manage, and I know my revenue. It's the same every month. Support can be variable because I could get more or less tickets, and some people get a lot more tickets than other people, so their costs are a lot different. So
Right.
what we want to do is
just quickly, there was a question around what the 70% actually represented. Was that gross margin or something else?
Yes, that represents gross margin, and I'm going to show you the math in a minute. Okay, so I'll show them exactly how we calculate it in an example. Okay, so support, $9.50. Centralized services, a little bit more because our tool costs are in there. Alignment, VCIO. So I'm going to go through each of these and show you how to calculate each of these. But here we came up with $45 a seat as our cost. So first, let's go into support. It's basically how many tickets do you calculate, how many tickets a month do you get and how much time you spend on them, but I'll simplify it, even simpler than that, and I'll give you a little gut check on the next one. What's the ratio in your business of support resource, right, and the number of seats that they can support? So in this case, they're just under 500 seats per resource. Now, for example, in my most recent MSP, when we had 2,000 seats under management, we had 3 or 4 people under support, and that made our cost for support around $10, and that's where you want to be. So if you have 1,000 seats under management and you have 4 people on your support desk, guess what? Your cost is double. You're at $20 just on support. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right? And there you go. So if you're only 240, you double. You're almost at $20 a seat. And in the business, we call that no bueno. So here's a little gut check you can do to determine your support costs without doing a lot of math. Determine all the resources that work on tickets, alerts, escalations, all of it, okay? Then divide that by the number of seats under management. And that will tell you basically the number of seats per support resource. And here's kind of a little chart that shows you what your monthly cost per seat is just for support. And the magic number is around $10. So, which means your ratio needs to be about 500 to 1. For every 500 seats, you would have 1 support resource. Okay?
Yep, makes sense.
Next is centralized services. So when you go to centralized services, there's 2 pieces. There are your employee costs, which are pretty low because 1 employee can manage a lot of seats, right, in centralized services because the tools do most of the work. That's why the tools are so critical. And then you have to take and figure out what your monthly tool costs are, and that tells you what your average cost is per seat for tools. So for example, you have an RMM, $1,000 a month for 1,000 seats. You may not have all of them deployed, but your cost per seat on average will be $1 a seat. So if there's other costs you have like backup that aren't per seat, you're going to have to figure out how to convert that into an average because you need to convert everything to the same common denominator to understand cost. We can't mix fractions. So everything has to be converted to an average cost per seat, even if you don't pay for it in that way.
Right.
Super critical. So the next ones are simple. The technology alignment role in our business, each one of them can manage about 20 clients. If your average client has 25 seats, that means they manage 500. You're around $11. Same thing with VCIO. They manage 45 clients, 1,125 seats. Your cost per seat for VCIO is a little over $6. So that's how we came up with our $45. And I would tell you, you may not have network administration, you may have account management, you may have less there, less VCIO, but normally people that do have a lot higher support costs. It all balances out. When I do this math with people, Patrick, have a cost per seat below $45. So if you want 70% gross margin on $45, you would need $105 of gross margin to make that happen, which means your cost per seat average has to be $150 a seat. Now, Patrick, if I'm telling you that most people have a cost per seat that's at least $45 or more, whether they know it or not, what does that mean in terms of how much your average cost per seat needs to be for almost everyone listening today?
At bare minimum 150.
Yeah. So what if it's not? What if your average is 125? Well, guess what? You're down to 64% gross margin. If it's 100, you're down to 55% gross margin. Guess what happens then? Lisa, your net profit goes down. Okay? Are you with me on this? Like, this is super important when I meet people and they tell me what their seat price is. I already know what their gross margins, and if they tell me what their scale is, I can almost always tell them their net margins within 3 to 5%, unless there's some other revenue stream they're not telling me about. Because it's just math, Patrick. Right?
Great. Yeah, makes sense.
All right, now here's the big one. Here's where this red one here, support. These other costs, you should be able to control them, and they're proactive roles, so you should be able to get those costs in line. But this support cost, we see people that have, $7. We have people that have $7 a month for support, and we have people that have $27 a month. And you can't have that much of a gap, and here's why, okay? You use this chart, and someone's $8 and someone's at $16. So how does that impact their business? When you go to $16.50, if all of your other costs are the same, now your costs go from $45 to $52 a seat. So to get 70% gross margin, you got to be at $173 a seat. Patrick, if the reason your costs are high is because you're doing more tickets, you're not commanding $173.
Right, exactly.
Right? You're not commanding it. And at $150, you're already down to $65. So this is so important, Patrick, that I want to explain it in a different way, okay? We both are at $45 a seat, you and me, okay? And we both want 70% gross margin, so we're both going to target $150 average sale price. Now, your company A, you have $18 support cost. So that means your seat cost minus support cost is $27, okay? Mine is only $37 I have left. I have $10 per seat per month that I can invest in high value things because your support costs are higher. That's almost 25% of my resources can be dedicated to high value recipe, VCIO alignment when you're doing tickets and escalations and answering alerts. Who's more likely to command that higher price, you or me, Patrick?
Definitely the one with the least support costs, because I think from a customer perspective, obviously the less tickets, the less issues there are to them.
Right. Actually, if you think about it, higher support costs to the MSP is negative value. You have less value to your customers because they're dealing with more issues. This is the reason why the top 20% of people net over 20%. The bottom 25% of MSPs are at or below break even after a real owner salary, and everybody else is kind of in that middle. They're between 10 and 15%. It's because of this math. So if you can, again, and I recommend everybody go back and listen to this one more time. In our training program, we spend a lot of time on this. If you can understand your cost drivers and this value equation, and you can start to put in the roles, those high value roles also drive down your support cost. So when customers are more in alignment with your standards, not just on what they buy, but how things are configured. When they're taking your recommendations and they're investing more because it's a strategic relationship and they're upgrading more things and investing more, those two things dramatically drive down your number of tickets. When we had 7,000 end users under management, we had 1,400 tickets a month. That's 0.2 tickets a month per endpoint. Had we been where the average in our industry is, which is about 1 ticket a month per end user, we would have had 7,000 tickets a month. Patrick, I never would have got there because we would have drowned in tickets way before 7,000.
Right.
So one other thing I want to show you real quick, okay, that you can use Picanomics, this micro Picanomics math that we developed as a framework. And let me give you an example. So you're at $45 a seat today, you target 150, okay? Now, you went to the show and you want to add, let's say $3 a seat of some new security stuff, or you want to add Auvik. You saw Auvik and Auvik's awesome. And it's going to average you $3 a seat, okay? So now your new seat cost is $48, assuming that the tool doesn't lower any other costs. Some tools will lower your labor costs, okay? But for our sake, let's say all your labor costs stay the same. So now to get to 70% gross margin, I need to charge 160. So all you got to do is ask yourself, does this new feature add enough value for me to go from 150 to 160? Maybe there's some good security features. You can tell people you're protecting them against things that they weren't, or you added Auvik, right? And you're doing some monitoring on critical stuff that impacts how they use their line of business apps. That's super valuable. So do you see how you can have a framework to make decisions of what you want to put in and when you want to put it into your offering, right?
Yeah, no, and I think I love that other view you have, kind of has them line by line, because as you mentioned, like some tools will just increase the value that you're providing to the end customer, and then some tools will actually kind of affect that equation drastically by reducing your support costs, right? I think that's an interesting conversation because a lot of people are hesitant to add new tools into the mix, but if they're in fact actually going to drive down your overall support costs, in a higher ratio, then it's definitely a good thing to evaluate.
Yeah, I remember, like, again, I'm going to show my age here, but I remember when we were going from, we had like backup, Arcadia backup exec and tapes at every single account at one point. And as we started moving towards remote backup, it was really expensive at the time and it was hard to sell. It was like $22 a gig in the beginning. And then it started to come down. But at some point when it came down a little bit and we got 3/4 of our customers on it, we figured out it was cheaper just to give it to the rest of the customers because it was like we used to have a full-time person dealing with backup alerts and they were gone. We got back a whole person. In our model, a resource is worth about $300,000 a year to us. Right? So yeah, you look at both ways. But just here's what I want to leave you with, and then we're going to talk. We have some good questions here that I want to answer, and we'll talk a little briefly about Auvik and TruMethods and how we can help you with this stuff. But as your service costs per seat go down, your value goes up. So think about this chart and think about as you start to develop proactive roles, as you start to do, use better tool sets like Auvik, okay, that'll drive down your ticket counts. As you start to do standards and alignment and make a real VCIO process and people make investments, this is what you have to think about. As you start to increase this ratio and lower your support costs, everything, all the other metrics in your business will follow along. So, define your chocolate cake, calculate your seat cost based on what we talked about today, focus on lowering that support cost and building. Way you do it is by building those high value roles and process. So, okay, real quick, can you talk about Auvik for a second and what you're offering here? I'll do the same with TruMethods, and then we have 5 minutes and we have like we have one really good question that I want to make sure we get to, that everyone's going to want to hear the answer to.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Just disconnected there for a second. Yeah, so I think one of the things I wanted to also mention, so obviously Auvik, as we've already alluded to a couple of times, really strong around network management, and we're a network management company, specifically building tools for MSPs, ultimately trying to drive down that cost per, support cost per seat by reducing the amount of tickets. And one of the things that, specifically around this topic that I wanted to mention is last week at IT Nation, we actually released a huge marketing program around trying to help our MSPs sell what we're calling effectively managed network services. So a lot of our partners will just absorb kind of the fee, and as they already provide managed network services per seat, like we've talked about here. But in some situations, they add it as a supplemental fee. So we're providing quite a bit of collateral. So feel free whenever you want to reach out. We can do a demo via the link there, and you can ask for a copy of some of the marketing collateral around how to position yourself in managed network services specifically.
Yeah, and listen, I would say if we spend a lot of time together, Patrick, our companies, and um, if you haven't looked at Auvik, you got to take a look right now because look, almost every customer is in a hybrid environment. I feel like the network management today, if not equally, is more important than your RMM, and it's like you can't have half the equation. So if you guys are the standard in the industry, so if you haven't looked at Auvik, at least take a look at it. That's my recommendation.
Appreciate that.
That's pretty strong recommendation, right? Coming from me. So let me tell you what we do, right? So we do two things. We have training, 200 hours of online training about how to help MSPs. We've been doing for 10 years, and we have our software tool, My IT Process. And the simplest way to say is, you have your tool stack around centralized services. You have a PSA around reactive support and probably project management. The roles of technology alignment and VCIO, developing a standards library and doing the alignment, and then having that seamlessly go to VCIO. That's what My IT Process does. And it ends in your ability to create a strategic roadmap for every one of your clients, what I call the conduit of value, where you're agreeing on what their plan is to support their business moving forward in the investments that they're going to make. So again, if you are interested in finding out more about Auvik, it's auvik.com/pp18. If you want to find out, get a demo and learn more about TruMethods, our training and our software, go to trumethods.com/demo. We have some special pricing available right now on My IT Process that includes our entire training library as well. And basically these high value areas, you can get them up and running in the next, in the next 4 to 5 weeks and be out with a different offering literally that quickly. So, okay, so there's one really good question here that I get a lot that Jason asked, and I want to make sure we answer before the top of the hour. How do you price or package special services that a lot of clients do not require, like some advanced security, but you want to offer them? So I actually, in our training program, we have a whole session to teach our members on this. We spend an hour on it, but let me just give you the Reader's Digest version. So one is, use the framework we talked about today. And first you have to ask yourself, what are the security features and what is the stack that we want around security and management and monitoring that we feel like every customer has to have? It's going to be built into our 150 or our 160 a seat, into our 45 or $48 seat price. Then you say to yourself, okay, there's some other important in this case, security features that not everyone's going to make the investment in, but some will. Take the same approach with them, which is, okay, if I'm going to offer these, can I use the same idea and offer these, say like, hey, so we're at $4,000 a month and this is what's included. For these additional features, it's going to be another $800 a month, $1,000 a month. So try to take the same approach in packaging them real clearly. Then over time, okay, hopefully some of those things that you're selling as extras, technology gets better, the cost per seat comes down, and you'll be able to start to roll some of them into your core offering. So the best people I've seen around security, that's what they do. They value pack their offering with as much security to lower their risk and their customers. And then the stuff that is additional, they package it. And you can decide, hey, can I be at 70% gross margin on that? Is that only a 50 or 60% margin? Am I selling it offensively because I want to make money, or defensively because I have some of those clients and I don't want anybody else in there, and I might be willing to do it for a little bit less margin? But again, if you know your cost drivers and you apply the same micro Picanomics process to that offering, then Patrick, you can make good business decisions. You're not guessing at any of it.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. People like this hour. They said it was good, Patrick.
Yeah, it's awesome. Some really positive comments here.
Yeah, good. Hopefully people came away with some command. And again, people are asking for the slides. Although we don't usually put the slides out, we are recording it. So everyone's going to get a link in the next 24 hours. So you can go back and review this again, share with other people. And I think it's the kind of thing that sinks more in because we covered a lot and there's a lot of math in this. Like I'm careful. I don't want to tie people up like a pretzel, but it's just so important that they learn it that it sometimes takes a second time, Patrick, to go through it.
Right.
Awesome. Hey, man, thank you so much for working together with TruMethods on getting this message out. Auvik is amazing, and for you being such a great co-host.
Yeah, awesome. And I think we may have both dated ourselves a little bit there when we were talking about spyware earlier.
Yeah. When I'm talking about that in Arcadia backup exec, we're showing our age. All right, everybody,
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
make it a great day.